The Emperor's 9 loyal sons were demigods, crafted to conquer the galaxy and serve as humanity's eternal guardians. They were the generals of the Great Crusade, the masters of the Space Marine legions, and the brightest hope for mankind's future. Yet in the 10,000 years since their own cataclysmic civil war, the Horus Heresy, almost all of them have died, disappeared, or been utterly broken. Their stories ended, not in triumph, but in sacrifice, mystery, and tragedy. The galaxy that was supposed to be their birthright instead became their tomb. So, where are the Loyalist Primarchs now? Dead, missing, trapped, or back from the impossible? The Emperor's sons were humanity's greatest hope, yet they pretty much all vanished or died right after their own civil war. In this video, we're going to quickly cover the current fate of every single Loyalist Primarch, but you'll want to stick around to the end, because I'm going to reveal what I believe is the single tragic flaw in their very design that doomed the Imperium to lose its greatest heroes. This isn't a story of random chance or bad luck. It's about a rot that was there from the very beginning, a secret hidden within the myth of the Primarchs themselves. Before we get to the missing and the returned, we have to start with the fallen, the ones whose deaths aren't a mystery but a certainty. Their fates are the bloody foundation the modern Imperium is built on. They are the great martyrs, and their stories are cautionary tales written in blood. First up, we have Ferrus Manus, the Gorgon, Primarch of the 10th Legion, the Iron Hands. Ferrus Manus is tragically famous for being the first Loyalist Primarch confirmed to be killed during the Horus Heresy. His end came at the infamous drop site massacre on Istvan Faith, a battle that was supposed to be a swift punishment of the traitors, but instead became a bloody ambush. Ferrus, a master smith and a warrior of uncompromising strength, had a deep and complicated friendship with Fulgrim, Primarch of the Emperor's children. When Fulgrim revealed his betrayal, Ferrus took it as a deep personal wound. On the black sands of Istvan Vuf, the two brothers met in a duel that would shatter their legions and their friendship forever. Ferrus, blinded by rage, fought with everything he had, but Fulgrim had been empowered by a demonic blade, and with a single treacherous blow, he decapitated the Gorgon. Fulgrim, momentarily horrified by his actions, was pushed further into damnation by the chaos entity that had corrupted him, and he presented his brother's head to Horus as a trophy. The death of Ferrus Manus was a brutal shock to the Loyalists. It proved that Primarchs, these seemingly unkillable demigods, could, in fact, die. It was a point of no return for the heresy, turning it from a rebellion into a war of total annihilation. His Iron Hands Legion was shattered, and for the next 10 millennia, they've been defined by a cold, bitter obsession with replacing the weakness of flesh with the certainty of steel, forever chasing the strength their father lost. Next, we have the great angel himself, Sanguinius, Primarch of the 9th Legion, the Blood Angels. If the death of Ferrus was the shock that started the war's true horror, the death of Sanguinius was the soul-crushing tragedy that defined its end. Sanguinius, often called the noblest of all the Primarchs, was a figure of unparalleled grace and martial skill. He was also cursed with visions of the future, and for years he'd been haunted by a single recurring nightmare: his own death at the hands of his brother, Horus. During the final moments of the Siege of Terra, as the Emperor assaulted Horus's flagship, the Vengeful Spirit, Sanguinius was the first to reach the War Master. Knowing exactly what was waiting for him, he faced Horus alone. He fought with the fury of an angel, but he was weary from the long siege, and he was facing a brother who had become a vessel for the unholy power of all 4 Chaos Gods. The fight was brutal, but its conclusion was foregone. Horus, disappointed that his favorite brother wouldn't join him, killed Sanguinius, breaking his body and soul. Imperial legend holds that, in his final moments, Sanguinius managed to create a small chink in Horus's armor, a weakness the Emperor would later exploit to finally defeat the arch-traitor. Whether this is truth or just propaganda, Sanguinius's sacrifice became the central myth of the Imperium. He is the ultimate symbol of loyalty and selfless duty, the angel who gave his life to save humanity. His death, however, left a permanent psychic scar on his legion, inflicting them with the Black Rage, a madness where they're forced to relive their Primarch's final furious moments. To this day, the Blood Angels are haunted by their father's sacrifice, forever walking a knife's edge between nobility and uncontrollable fury. Now we move into the shadows, into the realm of rumor, prophecy, and desperate hope. These are the Primarchs who weren't confirmed to be killed, but just vanished. For 10,000 years, their stories have fueled legends, and their promised returns have been a prayer on the lips of the faithful. Their absence has defined the Imperium as much as any confirmed death. Let's begin with Leman Russ, the Wolf King, Primarch of the 6th Legion, the Space Wolves. Leman Russ, the Emperor's executioner, was a force of nature, a barbarian king with a warrior's heart and unshakable loyalty. After the heresy, Russ was a fierce protector of the Imperium, but he grew grim and distant in the new bureaucratic galaxy. One day, during a great feast, Russ suddenly stood, gathered his most elite warriors, and announced he was leaving. He was vague about where he was going, only saying he would return for the Wolf Time, a final apocalyptic battle at the end of all things. He then walked out, boarded his ship, and vanished on a quest into the warp. The reasons why are shrouded in myth. Some stories claim he went in search of the Tree of Life to find a cure for the dying emperor. Others believe he's on an eternal hunt, tracking the traitor Primarchs through the twisted hellscapes of the Eye of Terror. The Space Wolves hold to the prophecy of his return, believing that when the Imperium's final hour is at hand, the Wolf King will come back to lead them in one last, glorious saga. For now, he remains a legend, a promise of feral salvation when all other hope is gone. Next is the Warhawk of Chogoris, Jaghatai Khan, Primarch of the 5th Legion, the White Scars. Jaghatai Khan was the master of the swift attack, a warrior poet who valued freedom and speed above all else. His loyalty during the heresy was absolute and crucial to the Loyalist victory. Like Russ, the Khan continued to fight for the Imperium after Horus's defeat. Sometime after the heresy, his fleet was defending a world from a massive raid by the Drukhari, the cruel and sadistic Dark Eldar. After a fierce battle, the Khan pursued the fleeing Xenos into a mysterious webway portal. He charged in to hunt his prey, but the portal closed behind him, and Jaghatai Khan was lost. The White Scars believe he's still alive, forever riding through the labyrinthine corridors of the webway, continuing his endless hunt. They hold a special hatred for the Drukhari, seeing them as the ones who stole their father from them. The Khan's fate is a perfect mirror of his life, a lone hunter on an endless chase, forever moving, forever free, but lost to those who need him most. His return is hoped for, but unlike Russ's prophecy, the Khan's fate is an open question, a rider lost in the dark between worlds. Then there is Vulkan, the Lord of Drakes, Primarch of the 18th Legion, the Salamanders. Vulkan's story is one of death and rebirth. He's a perpetual, a rare being with the ability to regenerate from almost any wound, even death itself. This ability was tested to its absolute limit during the Horus Heresy. He was captured by the traitor Primarch Conrad Kurze, who subjected him to months of horrific torture and repeated executions, only for Vulkan to resurrect every single time. He was blown apart in a massive explosion, and he came back. He was even stabbed with a weapon that could supposedly destroy a soul, and he still came back. After the heresy, Vulkan vanished. His legion, the Salamanders, believe he'll only return once they have recovered 9 sacred artifacts he scattered across the galaxy. Vulkan did briefly return about 1,500 years later during a massive orc invasion known as the War of the Beast, where he sacrificed himself in a cataclysmic explosion to destroy the orc leader. He hasn't been seen since. Because he's a perpetual, it's widely believed he is alive, somewhere in the galaxy, likely having regenerated in some remote location. For the Salamanders, his return is a desperate hope. He is the Primarch of Endurance, the undying flame. And his story is a testament to the idea that some things can't be permanently broken. Let's talk about the Praetorian of Terra, Rogal Dorn, Primarch of the 7th Legion, the Imperial Fists. Rogal Dorn is maybe the most debated of all the missing Primarchs. He was the stoic defender, the master of siegecraft, the unyielding bastion of the Imperium. It was Dorn who fortified the Imperial Palace for the Siege of Terra, and it was Dorn who found the Emperor's broken body after the final duel. For centuries after the heresy, Dorn was a pillar of strength in a shattered galaxy. Then, during one of the early Black Crusades, Dorn led a desperate boarding assault against a Chaos battleship. He was vastly outnumbered, and in the ensuing battle, he was lost. For a long time, the official story was that he died there. The only things recovered were his skeletal hands, which are now the most sacred relic of the Imperial Fists chapter. However, the lore has always been deliberately ambiguous. No one ever claimed to have killed him, and no body was ever fully recovered. While the Imperium largely considers him a fallen hero, this ambiguity has left the door of hope open, just a crack, for his possible return. His sons, the Imperial Fists, and their successors remain ever watchful, embodying their father's spirit of eternal vigilance. Finally, in the missing category, we have the most transformed of all, Corvus Corax, the Raven Lord, Primarch of the 19th Legion, the Raven Guard. Corax's story is a tale of grief and vengeance that descends into pure cosmic horror. His legion was decimated at the drop site massacre, and in his desperation to rebuild it, he used forbidden genetic lore. The results were monstrous failures, and Corax was so consumed by guilt that he locked himself away. Eventually, he decided he could no longer lead his sons. His last recorded words were, "Nevermore," after which he flew his ship into the Eye of Terror to hunt down the traitors who ruined his legion. He wasn't seen for millennia, but recent lore has revealed what became of him. His long exposure to the warp has profoundly mutated him. He has become a creature of shadow and darkness, a vengeful spirit that can shift his form, sometimes appearing as a murderer of ravens, or as a figure of living shadow armed with sharp claws. In this new form, he has hunted his traitor brother Lorgar across Daemon worlds, even proving powerful enough to get the upper hand in clashes with the Daemon Primarch. Corax is still alive, and he is still loyal, but he is arguably no longer human. He's become a monster to hunt monsters, a living embodiment of the grim darkness of the far future. So, that's the grim roll call of the dead and the missing. 2 martyrs and 5 ghosts haunting the Imperium. But the story doesn't end there. If you're finding this lore interesting, do me a favor and hit that like button. And if you really want to see more deep dives into the 40k universe, consider subscribing. It helps a ton. Now let's get to the ones who actually came back, because their return changes everything. For 10,000 years, the idea of a Loyalist Primarch returning was just a myth. It was a distant hope that kept the flame of the Imperium from flickering out. But then the impossible happened. Twice. First to return was Roboute Guilliman, the Avenging Sun, Primarch of the 13th Legion, the Ultramarines. Guilliman's story is one of resurrection against all odds. Near the end of the Horus Heresy, he faced the Daemon Primarch Fulgrim in a duel. Fulgrim, the same brother who killed Ferrus Manus, struck Guilliman down with a poisoned blade, inflicting a mortal wound to his throat. For 10 millennia, Guilliman remained frozen in a stasis field at the moment of his death, a silent icon of the Imperium's lost glory. He was a leader trapped in time, while the empire he helped build crumbled around him. Then, in the 41st millennium, as the galaxy was torn in two by the Great Rift, a desperate alliance between the tech priest Belisarius Cawl and the Eldari sorceress Yvraine managed to do the impossible. Using a combination of forbidden technology and Xeno's mysticism, they healed his wound and brought him back to life. Guilliman awoke to a nightmare. The Imperium he knew was gone, replaced by a decaying, ignorant, and dogmatic theocracy that worshipped his father as a god. Horrified but resolute, he took command. As the newly appointed Lord Commander and Imperial Regent, he launched the Indomitus Crusade to reclaim the galaxy, and now stands as the sole embattled leader of humanity. He's a man out of time, fighting a desperate battle to save an empire from itself. And then there was another, Lion L. Jonson, the first, Primarch of the First Legion, the Dark Angels. The Lion's return was even more mysterious. After the heresy, he returned to his homeworld of Caliban, only to find that his trusted mentor Luther had turned the garrison against him. The resulting battle was so catastrophic it destroyed the planet. In his final duel with Luther, the Lion was mortally wounded, and then vanished. For 10,000 years, his fate was a closely guarded secret, but the highest-ranking members of the Dark Angels knew the truth. The Lion was not dead, but sleeping deep within their fortress monastery, the Rock, healing from his wounds, and watched over by silent creatures known as the Watchers in the Dark. Recently, as the galaxy plunged deeper into chaos, the Lion finally awoke, but he's not the same man. He has emerged older, more weary, and haunted by his long slumber. He now roams the chaotic, lawless space of Imperium Nihilus, acting as a wandering, knight-errant protector. He is a figure of myth made real, waging a lonely war in the dark. His reunion with Guilliman was tense. A meeting of two very different leaders with conflicting ideas on how to save the Imperium. The two active brothers now represent two sides of the Emperor's dream: Guilliman, the statesman, and the Lion, the monster-slaying knight. And the fate of the galaxy may rest on whether they can work together. So there you have it. The final tally of the 9 Loyalist Primarchs. We have 2 confirmed dead, 5 missing under various states of legend and horror, and 2 who have miraculously returned. It's easy to look at this as a series of disconnected tragedies, a death here, a disappearance there. But what if it isn't random? You could argue there's a pattern, a tragic flaw woven into the very fabric of the Imperium that explains why they vanished. From this perspective, it wasn't an accident. The Imperium was perhaps doomed to lose its demigods from the start. And the reason why is the most tragic part of this whole story. Here's a theory. The Imperium lost its Primarchs because it was built to run on myth, not on men. The Emperor didn't just create generals, he created legends. And the ultimate fate of every legend is to become a story. Looked at this way, their deaths and disappearances weren't a bug in the system. They were a feature. Think about the martyrs, Sanguinius and Ferrus Manus. Their deaths were clean, brutal, and most importantly, useful as narrative tools. Ferrus's death was the ultimate proof of the traitor's depravity, galvanizing the Loyalists and turning a rebellion into a holy war. Sanguinius's sacrifice was even more powerful. It became the founding myth of the post-heresy Imperium, a story of selfless heroism that would inspire trillions for 10,000 years. They weren't just men who died. They were transformed into symbols. In death, they became more powerful tools for the Imperium than they ever could have been in life. They had to die to become perfect. Now consider the missing. Russ, the Khan, Vulkan, and Dorn. Their function is their ambiguity. They exist as pure, uncut hope. Leman Russ isn't just a general who left. He is the promise of a final, glorious battle. Jaghatai Khan isn't just lost. He is the eternal hunter, a symbol of tireless vigilance. Vulkan is just missing. He is the undying flame, proof that humanity can endure anything. And Rogal Dorn isn't just a casualty. He is the ghost in the walls, the legend of the Praetorian who might return at the moment of greatest need. For 10,000 years, their absence was arguably more valuable to the decaying Imperium than their presence would have been. Living Primarchs would have had to deal with the rot, the politics, the failure. They would have been flawed and made mistakes. But as myths, they're perfect. They are whatever the Imperium needs them to be. A reason to fight, a reason to have faith, a promise that heroes will one day return. And then there's Corax. He represents the dark side of this equation. He is the horror story, the cautionary tale. What happens when a hero doesn't die or become a myth? He survives, but at the cost of his humanity. He becomes a monster, a creature of the very darkness he fights. Corax's fate reveals a grim truth of the 41st millennium. Survival often means becoming something unrecognizable. He is the price of vengeance. This is the tragic flaw I mentioned. The Primarchs were tools so powerful they were destined to be turned into stories. Martyrdom, mythic absence, and monstrous transformation seem to be the 3 possible endings for a hero in the Imperium. That is, until Guilliman and the Lion returned. Their return shatters the myth. They aren't stories anymore. They're real, flawed, complicated men. They are forced to confront the grim reality of what the Imperium has become. Guilliman is horrified by the religious dogma and the decay. The Lion is a stranger in a strange land, a king without a kingdom. Their presence isn't a simple good guys are back reset. It's a crisis. It forces the Imperium to confront the difference between the legends it tells itself and the harsh reality. The myth is over. And now, the hard, messy work of actually trying to fix a broken galaxy must begin. The fate of the Loyalist Primarchs is the story of the Imperium in miniature. A saga of hope, betrayal, and loss, where heroes are turned into saints, ghosts, or monsters. For 10 millennia, the Imperium survived by feeding on the legends of its lost demigods. But now, with 2 of them back, the age of myths is ending, and a new, uncertain age has begun. The return of Guilliman and the Lion isn't the final chapter. It's the beginning of a new one, where legends have to walk the earth again and face the consequences of the stories told in their name. The biggest question facing the 41st millennium is no longer, will the Primarchs return? It is, now that they are here, what in the God Emperor's name are they going to do? What do you think? Who do you believe will be the next Loyalist Primarch to return, and what impact would they have on the galaxy? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.